Good afternoon, everybody. It is Wednesday, June 9th at 3 o'clock p.m., which means it is time for Women in Business. So excited to have you all here today. We are going to have an amazing discussion. I can't wait to do this. So I'm not even really going to talk about much right now. I may tell you a little more about what's coming up for things at the end, but right now, let me just tell you about Myra, and we'll bring her in here and we'll have a great discussion. Myra owns First Place Printing with her husband, Brian. Her full name is Myra Bufka because a good interviewer would tell you that. And she is the mom of 6 kids, 2 sons and 4 daughters, and they own their business and live and work in Montgomery City, Missouri. So let's pop Myra in here. Hi,
Yay.
Myra. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I am too.
Well, I'm glad you came back because last time was just we were having annoying internet problems, and I was so annoyed because we were having a good discussion.
We were.
But this time, I should not say this because I'll probably jinx us, but this time everything should work as planned. I hope. But fingers crossed, yes. I have so many things I want to talk to you about, but I want to start with one of the things that we talked a little bit about last time, which is raising strong young women. As I said in your bio, you are the mother of 4 daughters, and they range in age from, your girls are what, 17, 13, and 3? 4.
She just turned 4 in March, yes. And
she turned 4 in March.
Yep. And then we've got, Brian has an older daughter who is 24.
Okay. So you've got quite an age range there.
Yes. So we have all the things happening.
All the things happening. Well, I guess one of the things that I want to know, because I don't have kids. So when I was growing up, there seemed to be pretty regimented rules for what girls were supposed to be and what boys were supposed to be. Now I'm 52, so I'm dating myself a little. I understand that. But as you've watched your kids growing up, and especially with the age range, are you seeing differences in what they're being told culturally, or do you really not pay attention to that because you're raising them?
I think so. I think even just from when I was growing up to how things are with my kids, I've never told the girls that, well, that you can't do that, that's something only boys can do or whatever. And, my daughter Paige played football. So,
I love that.
So, she had grown up watching my son play. And when she got old enough that she was able to sign up, she asked if she could play. I was like, sure. And she goes, well, they let girls. I'm like, of course they will, because I'm going to make sure they do. And so she played. She only played for a year. She kind of figured out it wasn't, I like football. It's not really my thing though.
Right.
But I've never tried to give my girls the mindset of, that there's anything in the world that's gender specific.
Right.
If you want to go do something, then go do it. Figure out how to make it happen.
Right.
And getting there, there might be a few extra doors you have to walk through to get to that point, just because, my older daughter is very STEM oriented. And there's not a lot of, that is an area in the world where there's still, it's a little more male leaning in the science and math industries. And she wants to be a forensic anthropologist.
Oh, I love that.
And she's double majoring in chemistry and anthropology when she goes off to college fall. So she's going to be very immersed in the world of science and math, and she's excited about it. So there may be some aspects where she's going to have to work a little bit harder just because she's a girl, and some of the guys are going to kind of look at her sideways, like, why are you here? And she's going to put them in her place because she's smarter than all of them.
Well, there you go. Well, I think a lot of that is one of the things I said to you before we started this is I need to put a disclaimer on this that I do not stalk you on Facebook, because it feels like everything I say is going to start with, and I was on Facebook and I saw it. But I was on Facebook and I saw a post you had put up about your youngest daughter, where she had a cell phone and she was talking about she had to go to work to fix an employee or something.
Yeah, so she had a little play phone and she was like, "Mom, I was talking," and she goes, "Mom, I'm on the phone. My employee just called. There's a problem with the shirts. I got to go to work." And I was like, "Okay." I mean, obviously she is observing what's happening in our household.
But what I love about that is she's 4, you said. So already at 4, that to her is something that women do and men do. And she's not growing up with the idea that if there's a problem at work, daddy has to go fix it.
Right.
Which I just love, because I think that's the way you want young women to grow up, thinking that anything they want to do, they can do.
They don't have to have a knight in shining armor to come in and fix their problems. That
right.
If there's a problem, you're just as capable of fixing it as anyone else is.
But when I saw that, like I told you, I've been making little notes in my head if I need to mention these things. And I just loved that one, because at 4, she's already got the idea. And then there was another post I saw with, I think, your oldest daughter perhaps going to college for the French horn or whatever it was.
Yes.
And again, a very talented and driven young woman. So
yeah, and we just found out today that she passed her seal of biliteracy exam for French.
Oh wow!
So she is certified biliterate in the French language. So
wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. Goodness.
It is. She when she set, she had set this goal for herself, and that's what she wanted to do. And having a foreign language background and experience is very beneficial in her journey through anthropology. And if she has to travel to other countries or stuff for work in the future, so having that background is important. So she set this goal for herself, and she, with a lot of hard work, achieved it. It was a very intense test. So
now,
I'm very.
Which daughter is this? Grace Page?
Grace. This is Grace.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So Grace Page and Olivia are the daughters. Let's name them all. So I guess what I want to ask is, did you and Brian together once you married, and you and Brian separately before, did you both kind of have a plan for how you were going to make these amazing young women that you're growing, or has it just been an example sort of thing?
I think it's just been an example. I think, for Brian and I, we were both raised by very strong, driven women ourselves. Both of our mothers worked outside the home, which, I grew up in the 80s. So that wasn't totally uncommon that moms were working outside the home, but it was like that. That's my mom worked. That's what she did. And she contributed to the household income and everything else, just like my dad did. And my parents were always very supportive of, if there's something you want to go do it. I was taught how to change oil in cars and change flat tires and do all of those things, just like my brothers were. And, we were all taught how to clean. There is no job that's too big or too, that isn't acceptable for either of us to do.
Right.
And Brian's family was much the same way. His mom worked as the county clerk, and so she would be in court and things like that. And so there were a lot of nights where if she had to work late because a court case was going long or something, he had to make dinner for his younger brother. His dad is a farmer, so if he was out in the fields and his mom had to be at work. He had to be the one responsible for the younger siblings. And so I think growing up with both of us having those role models of our parents working and not being afraid of, if my mom had something going on, my dad came home and made supper.
Mhm.
And so I think seeing that really, when it came to raising our own kids, we very much just, this is what this was the example we had growing up. This is what we're teaching you. You need to know how to cook. You need to know how to help do all these things around the house. And if there's something in the world that you think that you want to do, let's go make it happen.
Right. Well, I think that's a really good message. And I mean, it seems to be working based on the stories that you've told me, but I think that's a message that young women don't necessarily get enough.
Yeah.
Is that if you want it, we'll figure out how to get you there, and you may have to work hard and you may have to go through a few extra obstacles,
right?
But you can do it.
Yes. And if we can get enough girls, you can be part of that example. If you work hard and you go through those extra doors, now you've kicked those doors open wider for the girls behind you. So that in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years, there's, by the time Grace is, got her degrees and has moved, accomplished what she needs to accomplish, and Paige is now starting on her journey, and Olivia is starting on her journey, Grace has opened some of those doors.
Well, and I think that's a huge thing. And it's something that I talk about a lot, that I think we need to emphasize more often, is that every woman who takes a step forward and does something that maybe isn't typical is opening that door for, and also being a role model.
Yeah.
For, saying that this is possible, because it's the first one that's the hardest. Once you see somebody do it, then that. Plus, I mean, what an amazing role model for her younger sisters Grace must be, that she's got all these aspirations and she's done all this stuff, and they're watching her and going, well, what do I want to do?
Right. Well, if she can do that, I can do that.
Yeah. I mean, so they've got you. So Olivia and Paige are going to just kick some serious ass.
They are. And Paige is already, she's a little bit, when we were talking about things, Grace is a little more, of all the kids, Grace is a little more just reserved and introspective.
Right.
She's not as outgoing. She's more introverted. Paige is very much, she's more outgoing and a little more vocal about her opinions and things. And so I've talking to her teachers at the end of the school year, they've made statements, Paige is the only female trombone player in her grade in band. All the rest of the trombone players are boys. And the band teachers and I were laughing that she'll sit in band class as far away from the boys as she can and looks at them in disgust during class, because they're 13-year-old boys,
Sure.
And she's just like, what is wrong with you people? Do you not know how to be out in public? Why are you acting this way?
They're 13-year-old boys. 13-year-old boys are not very civilized. But
so, and she's kind of always had that attitude. Her and Olivia are very similar in that way. When Paige started kindergarten, I just told the story the other day because it's one of my favorite ones about her. We used to call her the ice queen because she would just stare people down. And we went to her kindergarten orientation. And so they start you out in the cafeteria, and they go through some introductions and stuff like that. And then you get to go on a tour of the classrooms. And all these little kindergarten kids are running around, and Paige is sitting next to me on the bench with her hands folded in her lap, watching all these kids running around. And they'd come kind of running up to her, they're going to ask her if she wants to come play. And she'd just stare at them like she was staring into their soul. And they'd turn around and run the other way. And she just looked disgusted with it. Like, have your parents not ever socialized you? What is wrong with you? Why are you acting like heathens? So we go home later that night and we're talking about, I'm talking to Brian, telling him how it all went. And the Despicable Me movies were really popular at that time. So like the Minions were a big thing.
Right.
And she meant the word minions, but instead of calling them minions, she called them orphans. And she looks at me and Brian and she goes, I'm going to make all those kids my orphans.
I was
like, well, maybe that escalated quickly. Maybe not make them orphans. Maybe let's take it down a notch.
Well, that's a hell of a lot of self-possession for a 5-year-old.
Yes. She was, look, this is it. And she's had, she's had teachers consistently every year talk about how, if they're in class and the class is kind of acting up, like she'll sit in class and stare down these kids until they start acting right.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
I
so
love that.
she's got, and if somebody's getting smart with her or snippy, she doesn't really put up with a lot of crap from anybody. So
well, what I like though is that there was a time when when a lot of people would have tried to crush that spirit or make her be different or give her a lot of labels, which we will talk about later. But I love it that she's been able to keep growing up with that sensibility and done well with it.
Right. And we've been very lucky, fortunate to have teachers in her life that see that spirit in her and not crush her for it, that actually, boost her up for it and call her out and use her as an example of thank you for being, who you are and how you are. She won an award in band this year for being a good student, a good player, a good role model in the band because she comes prepared every day. She's listening to the teachers when they're giving instruction, giving tips and techniques on how to play better. And so having that kind of support system within this, it's very easy for a teacher, when you've got 20 kids in the class and they're, overwhelming you all at once to kind of, crush that spirit in that kid who is being a little bossy or being a little, bossy.
Label.
And she, and so we've been lucky that her teachers have all really embraced her attitude and praised her for it, of thank you for being that kid and being a role model.
Yeah, it really, well, I want to circle back to something you were saying about the 13-year-old boys, because I think you mentioned this before the show and it was such a good point. I wrote it down because I wanted to make sure we talked about it. You also said that, we can't just talk about raising strong women. If you're the parent of a boy, you have to also think about changing the way that you're raising your sons, because they need to be socialized to not be put off by or afraid of or intimidated by, or whatever word you want to use, strong women. So let's talk about that for a minute. So you guys have 2 sons.
We do.
How did you raise them? How are they being raised?
They are, Alex is 31 and Wyatt will be 20.
Okay, so they're a little older.
They're older. Alex is married, Wyatt is engaged, and they are both married to strong women. So I would say we did good. That they are not intimidated by strong, opinionated women. It is important that, when you talk about raising strong, driven, determined women, that it can't just be focused solely on your girls. You have to change the mindset of how we're raising our sons and teaching them that this isn't it isn't strange. It isn't weird that, a girl knows how to unclog a toilet or fix a plumbing
Right.
problem or change a tire or, be an astronaut. That is a completely normal thing. There's no reason why a girl can't do those things.
Right.
And I really think if we're going to change the working industry and get more women into places of leadership and places of more entrepreneurs and things like that, like we have to make it a normal thing for our boys, that it's not strange, it's not different. They can, if I can go out and start a t-shirt company in my garage, so can my sister.
Sure. Well, and I think the other half of that too is, like you said, both your boys are, engaged and or married to strong women. They need to learn that I think the traditional kind of,
we have to teach our boys not to be fragile. I think that's what we're looking for.
And not to expect that their women are going to be fragile either, because the traditional thing has always been a woman's looking for a man to take care of her and fix her problems and, bring home the bacon or whatever it is. And I mean, we're evolving away from that, I think. But there's still, boys are still kind of raised with that myth, the same way girls are raised with the myth that they're supposed to be the princess and wait.
Right. And wait for their knight in shining armor.
Yeah. The prince will come and kiss them, and then suddenly their life is all better. And it's like, that's the biggest load of bullshit there ever was, man. But I think it's a really good point, and I'm glad that you said that before we went to air, because I think if you just concentrate on the girls, you're only fixing half of the issue.
Exactly. You're only putting a Band-Aid on half shoe. Yes, it's important to empower our girls, but it's also important to teach our boys not to have a fragile ego and be intimidated by a girl who is driven and knows what she wants.
Exactly. Well, go ahead.
And while we expect that of our boys, we expect boys, go out there and bring bacon and go out there and get the job done. That's, that same mentality needs to be for everyone, not just one or the other. And my son will tell you firsthand, he interviewed for his first full-time, real big boy adult job a few months ago. And one of the questions they asked him was about people he looks up to. And he gave myself and his fiance as his role models.
Oh, good boy. Good answer.
Good answer. Yes.
Yes.
Because he saw all the work that I did for the kids when they were little, when I was a single mom. They've seen all the work that I've done since Brian and I have been married and how we build the business and stuff like that. And he goes, I know how hard you work. His fiance, who I love to pieces, her name's Harley. She is going to be graduating college a year ahead of schedule because she's just worked her tail off to knock out college credits and get her degree, and because she's got things in life that she wants to do and get accomplished. So he definitely, found someone who has the same kind of work ethic and backbone that I do. And I think that that's directly because of how he was raised and what he grew up with. He was the only boy in a house full of girls for quite a long time. And
he had no choice.
He had no choice. That's right. Yeah. He had to learn, get out of the way. We'll get stuff done. So
too funny. Well, one of the things that I just wanted to touch on real briefly, because I think this is interesting, is even when you think that you're fairly modern and you're really aware of all this stuff, you can still step in it sometimes. I'm going to refer to another Facebook thing, because your husband does this thing where he puts recipes up for you to see that he thinks you should make. And I found this hilarious. Plus, I liked the recipes, so I would comment or, so he started including me on the post because he thought it was funny. So I was giving him crap, basically, which is a nicer word than the word I was going to say. But anyway, and I kind of was nudging him about, hey, you could cook, you could learn to cook and you could do this yourself. And he came back with, I know how to cook. I taught my daughter how to cook when I was a single dad. And I was like, well, and it really hit me for a minute because I was like, my assumption without even thinking about it was that he didn't know how to do it. And he came back and he was very nice about it. And he's like, no, it's just Olivia's schedule. Myra's schedule is different than mine. And she usually gets home first. So she cooks. And I was like, okay, totally makes sense. But my go-to assumption was he doesn't know how.
Yeah.
And I mean, I like to think I mean, my platform is women's issues, for God's sake. So I just thought it was kind of a little smack upside my head that even when you're trying to be aware of this stuff, things can still kind of slip through.
Right. And I think it's hard when I think like my kids will have it better and easier than I did. Like even with parents and how, my mom mowed grass and took trash out and did all the guy stuff that you would, not think of. My dad would cook. We always complained when my dad cooked, but he could cook. Yeah. And load the dishwasher and run a little laundry, all the things that you wouldn't consider, the man to do. But it's still even growing up, like when my kids were littler and I would assign chores, it was hard to get out of that stereotype of, well, Wyatt's going to take the trash out and he's going to do this and the girls are going to do that. Like sometimes we had to, I had to break myself of that and kind of switch things around sometimes to not, like you said, it's been so driven into our subconscious for so long of this is how, these are the lines.
These are the things.
Yeah. And now it's hard to, and that's one of the things like with Wyatt and Harley, they'll cook together.
Right.
And Wyatt enjoys cooking just as much as Harley does. They'll make dinner together. They'll do things together. And he works, he's working as a vet tech at a vet clinic, which is, there's, some male veterinarians that work there, but it's a predominantly female office.
Right.
And, they've comments to him about, are you comfortable with this? Are you going to have issues with this? And he goes, look, I grew up in a house of lots of girls. There is nothing that you can say or do that's going to offend me. So, I think we're getting there. I think, things like what you mentioned of, I just assumed that he couldn't cook because, I think as we get older, as this kind of next generation of kids coming up gets older and are more, has more equality between them. I think that'll start happening less and less, but it is funny when things like that sneak up and smack you.
Well, it was. It was because I really had, and what's even sillier about it is I grew up with my father cooked dinner. He used to make dinner every Sunday. He made soup, but it was food. And my stepdad cooked and I have male friends who cook. So it wasn't like this was a concept that I but my go-to assumption was, oh, well, he can't cook and that's why he's doing this. And he was so sweet about it. And I was like, oh, I feel bad now.
That's okay. He deserved it.
Oh, he deserved it?
He did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good enough. Well, I love this part of the conversation, but the other half of this conversation that I really want to have, because I know there's some people who have already been talking about this part, is the labels that strong women run into. And
Yes.
this is something that I've encountered a lot. And I'm assuming since you run a business, you've probably encountered it too.
Mm-hmm. And
I guess my first question is, I almost want to go, why? But, that's kind of a big question. I understand it, but let's start there. I mean, why do you think, is it because strong women are intimidating, or because people want to put a woman who's advocating for herself in her place, or what?
I think a lot of it is because strong women are intimidating. Like, I have been told that I'm intimidating.
Me too.
And I'm harsh, and I'm critical, and I'm not friendly, and I got let go of a job because I didn't say good morning every morning.
Seriously?
Yeah. Like, because I didn't smile enough. So
seriously.
Seriously.
Oh my God. Sexual harassment. Get them.
People would come up to my desk and I wouldn't smile and say good morning to them. I was annoyed that they were interrupting me. I'm like, I'm not annoyed. It's 8:30 in the morning. I'm just trying to come to terms with the world. You just happen to be in it right now. Yeah, like I think a lot of it is intimidating because I don't think we're not great at teaching, or haven't been great at teaching men and other women that advocating for yourself, speaking, having, expectations for people of, and voicing your opinion on things, because, I think there's still a lot of stereotypical, that women should, well, you should just be nice, just be polite, don't say anything, don't rock the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of that's kind of still put out about that. And so then when you do come across, a woman who is very opinionated and very vocal about that opinion, and advocates for herself and what she thinks needs to happen, people don't know how to handle that. We would never, how often do you ever hear a boy being called bossy?
Yeah.
Like, hardly ever. Like, they're expected to be bossy.
They're expected to take charge. Yeah.
They're expected to take charge. They're expected to have an opinion and to be vocal and upfront about it, and kind of, but if a girl does it, why are you being so bossy?
Yeah.
Why are you telling me what to do?
The whole thing that you said about, when you came in the morning, you were just trying to come to terms with the world. And so you weren't really like, let's all smile and say good morning and chat for 5 minutes. And I'm kind of the same way. I'm like, I'm here to work. I don't. Yeah. But, if a man did that, everybody would kind of be like, oh, that's just his way. And don't talk to him until he's had his first cup of coffee and 10 minutes to do whatever. But a woman, you're always expected to be accommodating. Mm-hmm. And because I'm very much the same way as you. I'm like, especially when I worked in an office, I was like, I'm here to work. I'm not necessarily here to hang out and chat about crap. I have a job. I have stuff to do.
Right. When, I am not a morning person by any stretch of the imagination. And so it's kind of a running joke among, Brian and the kid, don't talk to Myra until about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. And I'm a little better now. I must be mellowing in my old age. I think the time's bumped up to about 9 now. You can start having conversations with me. But
progress.
Yeah. But if even here, like if I'm at my desk and I am focused on whatever I'm working on and someone comes up to me, I have to mentally change. It's not necessarily an irritation of being interrupted. It's more of I have to switch those mental gears from what my project that I was so intensely focused on to what do you need from me?
Mm-hmm.
And I think people just expect you to just, switch it on like that. And it doesn't work that way for, if it was a man, because I was a woman, it was an attitude. I had an attitude issue. If I were a man, it wouldn't have been an attitude issue.
No, it just would have been.
It would have been your personality.
And I think the other thing too is that having been the woman in a number of offices, some with a mixed bag and some with, well, no, actually, let me start with this first, because this I think is something that we really need to work on. I find, and this has been my own experience, that oftentimes the harshest criticism of an assertive woman is made by other women.
Yes.
And I worked, one of my first jobs I ever had, I worked for a female boss.
Mm-hmm.
And we started out great. And then I kind of made friends with a few higher up people in the company, just because we had things in common and I was asking questions and whatever.
Personalities clicked. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, it was just, I took a little time to kind of figure out what their little triggers were, and I worked with it. And, I was the evening receptionist. So it's not like I had a huge amount of power or anything, but I got in good with the president and the CEO of the company just from being friendly and chatting with them. Mm-hmm. And my boss did a complete, at first she was like, "Oh, little bird, let me take you under my wing and show you everything." And then I turned out to be good at shit. And she was like horrible to me.
Yep.
And, I don't get that. Why some women see another woman who's assertive or doing well or, taking charge of her own destiny, so to speak, and they just turn into shrews. I don't get it. There's another label, by the way, but I don't get that. Have you encountered that too?
Oh, yeah. I like you just described an entire work situation that I had that I was a customer service rep for a large corporation, and I was in charge of all of their e-commerce and sales. So I was dealing directly with Walmart and Amazon and big retailers and handling ship accounts and stuff. So I, making sure thousands of orders are going out the door every day and things like that. And when, it was at a time where e-commerce was really picking up and taking, it was 10 years ago. So it wasn't like it was now. It was still relatively new and not everybody was doing it and things like that. And so I was, given this and said, okay, figure out how to make it work. And I figured out how to make it work. And the bosses, I started getting in good with, I already had a good relationship with, because I'd worked there previously in a different department. So I had a good relationship with a lot of upper management, vice presidents and things like that. And the, through the e-commerce part of it, I had to start dealing more with, we were a business and then there was another like corporation that owned us. And I had to start dealing more with those corporate people who were even further up the food chain. And they, my boss absolutely like 180'd on me and hated that I had a good relationship with this one vice president that worked at the corporate level, because I did accounting for 20 years before I switched to doing this customer service job for her. So I understood how he thought about things and what you like, we clicked. And I could explain stuff to him in a way that made sense. And he had a real dry sense of humor and was very sarcastic. And so we got along well. And it just drove her nuts, because she had worked for, she had been with the company for 30 some odd years, and, kind of chipped her way up to where she was at. And then I think from her perspective, it seemed like I just strolled through the door and here I was. And I think that's some of the issue. Some of these women who have really worked and had to bust those doors open are sometimes a little bitter when someone else gets to just walk in. Instead of looking at it from a perspective of, look what I've done and look what I hired this person and they're excelling and that's a reflection of me.
Right.
Instead of viewing it from that perspective, they take it more as an affront of, like, it's a competition and there's only one spot at the top, and how dare this person try to take my spot.
Right.
So rather than of lifting each other up, it ends up becoming, okay. I think society as a whole tries to do that a lot with women, is pit them against each other, and they're then being supportive and building each other up.
I think you're totally right. And the other half of this that always really annoyed me was, after I left the company where I was, I found out later from a person who was an employee there that there were rumors going around that I was sleeping with both the CEO and the president. And I was like, what?
Right.
Why? I mean,
obviously that's the only reason why.
Yeah, that's the only reason why they were stopping by my desk to say hello or anything, is because I was, secretly doing naughty things with them after hours, and I was like, I don't even, but that's the kind of crap. If it had been, well, I don't know, maybe that's not true. I want to say, if I had been a guy and the CEO and the president had been women, would there have been the same rumors? I don't know.
I don't think so, because I think if the CEO would have been a woman, it would have been expected of her to be friendly and to stop and talk to the receptionist and talk to everybody else.
Right.
Because women are expected to be friendly and put people at ease and make everybody feel better, and men aren't. Men can be gruff and ignore everybody in the room, and
And why would the president of the company pay attention to the evening receptionist unless she was, making him happy after hours? And I was like, and if anyone had known me at like 20 or 21, I was the last person who would have been like being this, hey boys, let's go, And when I found out, I was like, I was almost a little flattered. I was like, seriously? But I mean, I think it's sad. And honestly, I do believe that the rumors came from the person who was my boss, but I can't prove that, obviously. But and it's many, many years ago now. But I think women are in a really crap place in a lot of ways, because you can't be too friendly, you can't be too gruff, you can't be too competent, you can't be too needy. It's like there's all these boundaries, and how the hell are you supposed to know what how do you find the balance, I guess? Or do you just say screw it and hope that eventually you're going to luck into people who like you for who you are?
That's been my subscription to life, is screw it. I'm just going to, I tried for years to kind of be the person that checked all the boxes and, didn't make the waves, and just smile and be nice. And it's just exhausting,
It is. Because
So
I did the same thing for years and and now I look back and think, damn.
Yeah. So, and I've always really tried to advocate that for my kids of just be yourself and be who you are. And if somebody doesn't like you, that's their problem, not yours. Don't go out of your way and be a jerk, but be yourself. And if that person doesn't, not everyone in the world's going to like you, no matter how nice you are. So you might as well just be yourself. And if they don't like you, they can just go on about their way and don't waste time worrying about them.
Well, I think that's something that's so important to teach kids, regardless of their gender. Is, I mean, like you said, you tried to do so did I. I mean, I tied myself in knots for years trying to not be who I was, because people didn't like it when I was too competent, and they didn't like it when I knew the answer, and they didn't like it when I took over and ran things.
Yep.
And so I tried not to do that stuff, but that left me so frustrated sometimes because I was watching people who weren't as good at things as I was.
Yep.
Being in charge.
And knowing that there's a better way to do it, or a more efficient way to do it, and not being heard. And I do know that one of my flaws in life is I like having things done my way. That is very much a Myra thing that sometimes I have to keep in check. That and remind myself that my way is not always the correct way. Most of the time, but not always.
Okay.
And if you can do things your way and get the same quality results, and then that's the, if it's more efficient, if it's better, whatever it may be, if you can make the same thing happen and get the same results that I'm getting, then go ahead and do it your way. But if you're doing it some other way and coming up with shitty results, then we need to do it the way that I told you to do it.
Yeah.
Because that's the correct way. That's how we're going to get the results we want.
Right.
And people don't like hearing that. Imagine that.
I can't imagine that. Well, I think a lot of times what happens is, if people haven't been around strong women, they have this picture in their head of what women are supposed to be. And if you come in and you go, nope, we're going to do it my way, or I know what we're going to do, or if you just come in and you're good at something, and people get really kind of almost offended sometimes. And I'm like, so I wonder, and I think we talked about this a little earlier, but I wonder if maybe this is how we solve that problem, is if we just raise kids who are themselves, and they're fine with being themselves, and they're fine with letting everybody else be themselves, and nobody has any, and everybody does what they're best suited to do.
Yep.
I mean, it sounds like a friggin' utopia, but
it does.
It does. But I have to say, when you find your group, and there's people that support you and understand you and think what you're doing is great, God, it's the best feeling. I mean, when you don't have to be small to make other people happy, God, it's the best feeling.
And I really feel like being yourself, one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got after I got divorced, a really good friend of mine made the comment to me. He goes, I was talking about dating, and, I hadn't done it in 15 years. And now here I am, this 30-something-year-old mom of 3 kids. Like, what the hell am I doing? And the best advice he gave me was just do whatever you want. Do things that you enjoy doing, and live life how you enjoy doing it. And you'll find your people. by doing the hobbies that you enjoy and finding a, job that you enjoy and things like that, you'll find the people in your life that, your people will come to you because they're going to be out doing the same things that you like to do.
Well, and I think that's such a good piece of advice. I love that because I think having been a veteran of this when I was younger and stupider, you try to, and having a mother who did this for her entire life, you become whatever you need to become to hook whatever guy you want to hook. And then you're living a life that really isn't yours with a guy that maybe wouldn't like you if you really knew who you were.
Right.
And I was always, which is probably why I'm so the other way, where I'm like, I don't need a man, I'm good, just because I did. I watched my mom kind of become a different person every time.
This chameleon every time she met.
Yeah, she'd meet a different guy. And I was like, I don't get that. I mean, it seemed to work for her, but I was like, if it didn't, I never knew, I guess. But I don't know. I think that's a very toxic thing that women are still sometimes taught to do that we really need to, well, okay, not your daughters, but, some women. And I think women are taught to do that in a lot of situations, kind of tamp
just
down.
Blend in.
Don't make waves. Don't be too good at anything. Don't be too pretty. Don't be too this. It's like, it's friggin' exhausting with all the list of things you're not supposed to be sometimes.
Yeah. But. Yeah. And I will say that I don't think I was ever not who I am when I met Brian. We met, I helped coach my son's football team. Brian made t-shirts for us. That's how we met. And I sent him an Excel spreadsheet and he was like, that was a great spreadsheet. Never underestimate the quality of a good spreadsheet. So, but I was never, I never hid who I was from him of, look, I was unemployed when I met him and was like, this is the deal. I got let go from this job because whatever. And, I'm finding something else. Here's a very detailed, organized spreadsheet that you need to order these shirts and when can I have them? And, here's a deposit and this is the most organized order I've ever taken in my life. And so he was never, I never tried to be something else for him other than this is who I am, take it or leave it. I spent too many years in a marriage trying to make it work for it to end up falling apart anyway. So I'm just going to be who I am now and take it or leave it, buddy. So this is it. Which is something that I have tried to impart to my kids of, Brian knows without a doubt, I don't need him. I want him. I choose him every day. I can do this on my own. I don't have to have a guy here to, help me parent kids and run my life and things like that. I want him to be in my life to help me do these things. And I think makes the relationship more special because I'm choosing him every day to do this and vice versa. He was a single dad for years before we met.
Right.
And the same thing, I don't have to be in his life. He can do all of this on his own. He's more than capable. We choose each other every day. And I think that is really the fairy tale that we need to be teaching our kids rather than the princess stuck in the tower with the dragon waiting for the knight in shining armor. Be your own knight, kill the dragon yourself, go out and do whatever you want and choose your own prince.
See, I think that is such a valuable message for anybody. I mean, it took me a really long time to learn that, which is why I'm still single at 52. Because I picked all the supposed princes who were going to save me, who never did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and after a while I was just like, well, these princes are crap and I don't like myself when I'm with them. So I'm just not going to pick any princes for a while and get myself right, which I did. But I think that's the way it should be.
Mm-hmm.
You choose people to be in your life as life partners, as, friends, as coworkers, whoever they are, because not because you need them, but because they enhance what's already there. And I love that so much. I want to put it on a t-shirt. Oh my God.
Choose people. I think you should choose people in your life who make you a more authentic you.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. I love that. And I think that's true because the people who like you as you are without you having to try to be anything, just living your life, those are the people who are going to make you so much a better person because they aren't trying to make you be something else. I love that. I love that. Write that down. Put it on a something.
It's my $1 million idea. I'm trademarking it right now.
Yes, trademark it right now because it's a good point, and I think that it's a point that I wish, especially more young women knew, because there's still a movement out there in certain sectors of our society to teach girls that they need a man to make their life complete, or they need a man to protect them, or they can't manage on their own, or whatever it is. And it's like, that's such bullshit. I'm sorry, but it totally is. And it's toxic too, because, everybody needs to stand on their own. You can't put that weight on another person of, you have to make me better. You have to protect me. You have to provide
it's your
for
responsibility to make me happy. Nobody can make you happy except for yourself. And we've had those conversations a lot with our kids growing up of, being in relationships are great, and friendships and things like that, but you're the only person who has control of actually making yourself happy.
Well, and that's the thing, is if you're waiting for the right person to come, I get that from people. They say, well, aren't you sad that you're not with somebody? And I'm like, I've been with people that I was mostly glad when I was not with them anymore. So honestly, I haven't really met anybody that I felt like, this person, and this is me personally, that I felt like this person is really upping the game of my life. Right. So and would I love to meet that person? Yeah, but I'm good. I have a great life. I cannot complain. Yep. So, and I think what you said about you and Brian choose each other, you don't need each other. And that's what it should be. And I just love that so much. I can't even tell you. Well, it's, I guess maybe because of, growing up the way I did with the mother that I had, it's just like, this is such a good message. I wish she could have had that message at some point in her life. So I feel like I want to spread that along. Anyway, we are almost at an hour. It goes fast.
It does.
It goes really fast. One of the things that I did want to do, if you want to check out Myra and Brian's company, firstplaceprinting.com. And now I'm thinking, geez, I need to have you back for another session so we can talk about seizing your opportunities to sell, because we never even got to that one. But,
I know.
Well, these things happen. Well, we could do a little bonus time, because I do want to talk about that. Do you have a minute? Okay.
Yeah,
let's just go for a little bit more, because I think we can hit this one pretty fast. But again, another Facebook post of yours that I saw, because apparently I am stalking you. I don't know. But you were talking about
a person. It's okay.
Yeah, you're just so entertaining. You do a lot of, well, like I said, mostly I was storing up things because I knew you were coming back at some point, and I was like, oh, we need to talk about that. But I think you and Grace went to her college, and you were talking about, you were meeting someone at the college and you hit them up to do their logo wear or something.
Yes. So Grace plays the French horn, and also plays the mellophone. And she was auditioning to join the marching band at her college. And while we were there for her orientation, the director of bands had sent her an email and said, "Hey, would you mind stopping by? I got your audition. Would you mind stopping by my office so we can meet and talk and all that?" So we stopped by his office, and he gave her a couple pointers on how she could play her horn better. Because playing the French horn is very, like, unless you play the horn, it's really hard to know all the little tricks and techniques, and because it's very, very intense, very not that not playing any instrument isn't, not everybody can just go pick up a trumpet and start playing a song.
Right.
But it's a little more difficult than just playing a trumpet or a clarinet. So he gave her a couple pointers, and as we were sitting there talking, and kind of getting to know each other, he mentioned some other kids that were going to be joining from some of the other schools in the area. We're 3 hours away from this college where we live, and he mentioned a school district in the St. Louis area that we make shirts for. The band director at that school district used to be a band director at the school where we live, that my kids go to. And he got a job at another district and kind of brought us with him when he moved.
Oh, cool.
So he's an hour and a half away from us, and we still make all of their show shirts for his marching band and still help, and banners and whatever else he needs. He's a great guy. We absolutely love Mr. Perry. And the band director at SEMO brought up that school. And I said, we were talking about Mr. Perry, about the band director there. And I said, we still get to see him every once in a while. And I could have left it at that. I could have just said, we get to see him every once in a while through, at other things, and let it go. But I took the opportunity to add in, we get to see him when we make shirts for his band. And I think that that's something, it kind of ties in with being, a strong or intimidating person. Like, I am not a natural salesperson, and I don't like pushy salespeople. And I think most people don't like pushy salespeople.
No, I don't know a lot of people who are like, yay,
that enjoy that, in my face of, do you need this? I have a much more, I don't know, I don't want to say the word laid back, but my approach more is like, look, you either know if you need shirts or you don't. You either know if you need a new garage door or you don't. Like, I don't want to, just keep pounding on your door asking you, hey, do you need shirts today? Right. Do you need shirts today? But putting it out there of, this is what we do, finding those moments where you can, I always like dropping it into conversations where it kind of feels like it's organic, and having a conversation with someone and getting, well, what do you do? What kind of things are you interested in? Oh, hey, I make shirts. Do you need some? And kind of, letting it happen naturally. And I think some women and maybe some, that's something you have to be aware of when you're trying to make sales. And even when I wasn't trying to make sales, I was trying to get my kids signed up for college classes and figure out what dorm she's going to be in and make sure she's getting a scholarship for band and all this stuff. Right. Like, I'm not trying to sell shirts to a Division I college. I'm trying to get my kid in school. But I am going to take the opportunity. If you're going to give me 5 minutes and I get to tell you what I do, I'm going to tell you what I do, because I know you're going to wear shirts because I see them. So everybody wears clothing. At some point, you're going to need something. Hey, my kid goes here. How about you, let me make some shirts for you and help pay her tuition.
Help pay her tuition. Yeah.
Help pay her tuition. So she, he mentioned that, and he was like, he was instantly excited. You guys make shirts? I'm like, yeah, we do shirts, we do embroidery, we do signs, we do all kinds of stuff. And then the conversation just completely made a left turn, and we went, like, he took us back to the room where they keep all their apparel and starts showing me everything that they do, and sent us home with samples of everything so that we could quote and send samples back to him of all the comparable stuff. And so we're really excited to be able to get to work with them this fall for everything that they need. So and Grace made the joke at the time. She was like, this is just how it's going to be the rest of my life. You're just like, my first day of work, I'm at my first real job. You're going to be walking me in going, hey, by the way, this is my kid and I make shirts.
Well, I mean, there's a couple things about that story that I really like. Number one is what you're doing is what I call subtle selling. Mm-hmm. You're looking for an opening, but you're not like, hey, you want some shirts? Yeah. You want some shirts? You want some shirts? You're just, yeah. But when the opportunity comes, I think the thing from that story that really is kind of like the point I want everybody to take away is when the opportunity came, you grabbed it. You didn't go, oh, well, this isn't the time, or, oh, well, I'll send him an email when I get home and say, oh, hey, by the way, you were like, I'm here, I'm going to do it. And the worst thing that happens is he says, oh, we like who's doing our shirts. And then, exactly. Or, oh, that's nice that you guys do shirts. And then you haven't really lost anything. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I've kind of taken as my motto recently, and I think it was Erin Montgomery who said it, but I don't know for sure. But somebody said, if you start out with nothing and you ask someone and they say no, you have exactly what you started with. Yep. But if you ask, maybe you get more. So you don't lose anything by taking the chance because you didn't have it to begin with. But if you don't take the chance, you're never going to get it.
That's right.
And I thought, and I don't know why that struck me as so profound, but it really kind of, I guess I'd never thought of it that way. That if you don't take the chance, if you take the chance and you don't succeed, you aren't any worse off than you were.
Right. You haven't lost anything. Yeah.
Right.
You only have something to gain. You don't have anything to lose. And I think that having that conversation and then doing it in front of Grace, where she's there and she's a part of it, what was good and was important, and a way for her to see how to network and how to sell herself in the future, when she's looking for jobs and applying at colleges for, to further her education and stuff, that how to look for those opportunities to pitch herself, pitch the job, pitch the whatever it is that you're trying to put on the table. And I really, I am more of a subtle salesperson than an in your face salesperson, but I think that it was important for her to see, and I think it's an important message to put out there of not only do you have to be cognizant of the opportunities of, when, how to make it happen organically in conversations with people, and also not being afraid to just reach out there and throw it and say, and say, catch it, see what happens. Because like you said, the worst that would have happened would have been like, oh, that's cool. Are you guys really busy? We would have just had that polite conversation, and that would have been the end of it. But instead it turned into a really good opportunity for us. And I'm glad that she was there and could see that. It was funny that she made the joke about it. Just, this is just going to be the rest of my life.
I'm going to be at my wedding, and my mom's going to be, hey, we do church banners.
Yeah.
But well, I think that's what I like most about that is what you said about Grace being there and seeing it, because I think one of the things that hold women back sometimes is, I'm trying to say that and it didn't sound right, but I know what I meant. one of the things that keep women from maybe advancing as fast as they could otherwise is they're reluctant to take the chance to ask, or they feel like they should wait until somebody notices or anoints them as the person, you know, instead of going, hey, I did good work, I need a raise, I should get a raise, or, you know, hey, I know you're doing this project and I really think I could be of help with it, I want to be part of it. You kind of wait because you're kind of taught that you're not supposed to pursue what you want. You're supposed to wait until someone gives it to you. But I mean, Grace has got an example sitting right there next to her going, nope, I'm not waiting. I want it. I'm going to go get it.
And I think it's something that they've all, that Grace and Paige have both picked up on, and probably Olivia. I mean, she's already, you know, telling employees they're not doing jobs right. So like, you know, Paige isn't afraid, you know, when she's at school, and I think we talked about this the last time I was here, that, you know, she walks around with business cards and hands them out to people.
Yeah, you told me that last time.
And that's really part of, you know, her reflection of watching, you know, do our jobs and what we do, and not being afraid to go out there and say something. And, you know, hey, going to be on the track team, we're going to need shirts, here's a card.
Right.
Call my mom.
Well, I have to laugh because your husband has popped up in the comments and he says, Myra is a subtle salesperson, unlike Paige, who is pushy.
Paige goes for it. Paige doesn't act. She does. She'll just be in your face. Hey, we should start a gardening club and we're going to need shirts and banners. Here's a card. So that's really, she sells the event and the goods to go with it. So.
But the thing is, though, that's going to serve her well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, you got to love women or people in general who will advocate for themselves and aren't afraid to do that. I think there's more people that need to be like that. And it doesn't sound like she's doing it in a, you know, slimy salesperson sort of way. She's doing it in a, I know this is going to happen and here you go. Here's the people.
Right.
You know, which you got to love.
Here's how to get it done. She was the track manager for her middle school track team this year. And the responsibilities she had was being in charge of the sign out sheet. So if a kid decided to leave with mom and dad right after the meet was over versus riding the bus home or something like that, they had to go see Paige and sign out. And her track coach told me that she specifically gave that job to Paige because she knew Paige would go chase these kids down and tell them, hey, you didn't sign out. Why didn't you sign out? And that, right. And there were a couple meets where kids left and didn't sign out. They just left with mom and dad. And the coaches had to call and find out. And at practice the next day, Paige went up to him and was like, you know, you're supposed to come see me to, like, she kind of chastised him of, you know that this is the rule and you're not following it. And now we had to wait an extra 10 minutes while we called your mom and dad to make sure they had you. So next time, the next meet we go to, don't do that. Like, you know, she's
not going to run the world someday.
She is between her and Olivia. Like they've got it on lock. I'm not worried.
I love it.
They're going to have it all under control.
Ghosta says, I have worked for her in Sweden. Send her over. So if Paige ever wants to go to Sweden, we know somebody will give her a job.
She would love you.
Oh, too funny. I love it. Well, we're almost at a minute. We're almost at a minute 15 now.
Almost a minute. That was the fastest minute ever.
Now. Yeah. So I'm going to pop up the URL for you guys one more time. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing so much about your amazing daughters. They sound wonderful and I can't wait to hear what they do in the future. And I will stop stalking you on Facebook, except I want to know how their lives turn out.
That's okay. Stalk away. That we do. They are hilarious creatures. So they definitely keep me on my toes. So
well, and I have to see what recipes Brian's putting out there too, because there might be something I want to make.
That's right. It does not be anything that I make. So I can promise that. I've not made a single recipe that he's posted. Is
that like a policy decision or?
It didn't start out that way, and then now it just feels like it would be wrong if I made something that
if you actually did one, that would just encourage him. I see.
It would, yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to say thank you very much. I'm going to pop you out and close the show. And I so appreciate your time today. This was great. Thank you for coming back. And it worked, and we didn't have any issues. Yay!
Yay!
All right. Thanks, Myra, so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Well, that was amazing. I loved it. We talked about so many good things. And I'm just going to take a quick minute to say thank you to everybody who watched today. And please come and join us again next week. My guest will be Adrienne Palmer from Screen Printing Magazine, and we're going to talk about the Women in Screen Printing Awards. And I'm really excited about that because we need to support more women who are doing good work. So please tune in for that next Wednesday. Thank you very much for being here, and you all have a lovely day.